Okay, we will continue. Our next point is threats to democracy. And we considered several points. Most probably you find additional ones. The first one is the enemies of dialogue is sentimentalism and fundamentalism. This will be elaborated by Pechman. Next, lack of commonly believed values. We addressed this already. Open society and fragmentation. Where remains the society? The next point is, we also addressed this, the world is market and product. Consumerism versus community, the neoliberal agenda and related, lack of direct contact and personal exchange. These are the points from our side, at least, that could be addressed when we are speaking about threat to democracy. Please.
First, I would like to suggest a movie that was named Agora. Agora is related to the woman, a philosopher, that was related to 400 AC. Hypatia was named Hypatia. In Agora, we will see a kind of مشارکت. Yeah.
Working together.
Contribution.
Cooperation, two groups, sentimentalism and sentimentalist group and fundamentalist group, and how they work with each other in a society, and in the society that they are follow the democracy, and they are following the philosophy, science, and any topics like this. And in this film, I think it's a very, very good example for this topic that we will follow it now. And in our modern age, we will see this kind of working with each other, this kind of working with each other, these two topics that in Germany, we can see many kinds of this concept. For example, when you will speak about the environment crisis, the sentimentalism said, okay, you should block every factories that working against the pollution and product the pollution for the air, for the water, and anything else, and disturb disturb the nature and anything like this. And you should. And didn't think about the outside of the country, and didn't think about the other countries that are managing but fundamentalism system. If you check in the statistics, you will find many documents that the more polluted countries are non-democratic countries. And if you are a person who believes the science and who knows about the Earth, planet Earth, that all parts of this planet work with each other, and if you are living in a small part of this planet and you are working as a sentimentalist, just you are following the plan that is related just to your country. It's a small point, small location, small area, but you didn't attend to the whole of the country, whole of the planet of Earth. And it's not important. And you say, it's not my duty, it's not my business, and it's not related to myself. Just I follow my way. And if your government and if your democratic government works with the fundamentalism and fundamentalist government, you didn't reject their act. Maybe in sometimes you would like to didn't attend to their action. In this situation, I have many examples about this event that happened, and I don't know how can I explain it and how can I speak about this topic, because for example, can I name the Grön Party and anything else? Yeah. No. Yeah.
No, we can, but proposal you should first.
Because I would like to speak how this kind of point of view work with each other. And so the very biggest threats, I think, happened in the democratic societies, and the groups that are working in this kind of countries and democratic societies didn't attend to this problem. I couldn't speak in this situation because some topics, it's a very problematic topics and subjects that I prefer very slow explain the meaning of this concept, because maybe it will be I hope Ulrich follow it and I will follow you again, because I want to speak to some religious group and everything else, and I prefer to be quite
I should do it.
Yeah,
I will do it.
Then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the point
because
is,
it's related to the discourse of your society, and I prefer to be quiet about this concept. Yeah.
Okay. The general point of Pechmann is there are two major cultural forces at work today threatening a democracy. One is the obvious force. This is fundamentalism. Also, I'm a fundamentalist, also based on a certain ideology, and then I'm not open to dialogue, and this is not democratic, like right-wing movements, like, and so on. Some Islamistic movements.
Yeah.
It's not about the Islam. This is very important. There's a different thing. It's only about a certain mindset. He termed fundamentalist. It's a mindset following a certain ideology. This is fundamentalism, and the sentimentalism. This is an idea that says, okay, another threat is not so obvious, but it's a kind of romantic movement, and this movement he called sentimentalist. Sentimentalist is to argue on the base of emotion, to argue on the base of feeling, but not in the fundamentalist direction, in the direction of protectiveness, and this is romanticism. So I'm just referring. It's my job now. I have to refer. Okay, and this sentimentalist movement very often takes the shape of a certain ideology, and there's a close linkage between ideology and becoming fundamentalist if the things are going in a certain direction. For instance, if we have certain movements inside the Green Party here in Germany, or the Green Movement in Western Europe, if the first priority has to be the reducement of carbon dioxide, with all means, the all is important. Right now, with all means. Or if we have members of the Generation Z gluing themselves on the street. This is, he called it fundamentalist. This cat here, I guess. The fundamentalist, sentimentalist movements. Why? The romanticist element is we have to save all Earth, no matter its context. We have to save and to obey to certain aspects of preserving life, no matter the context, no matter the consequences. And this is it is sentimental in that way that it does rely on feeling in the end and not on argument. And dialogue relies on argument. No? So I'm repeating now the strain of thoughts. It's an interesting strain of thought. No? And we have to clarify it. For the sentimentalist movement, as said, also the fundamentalist case is obvious. This is easy to handle. And the sentimentalist case is a bit more difficult due to this romantic element in it. No? We have to distinguish here. No? In case of this green, as inside the green cultural stream, no? As inside the green movement, we have certain movements that are sentimentalist. It's not about the need for having a better ecology. It's not about the need for fighting against climate change. It will ruin us in the end. So this is one thing. So what are apples and what are blueberries? No? And we are speaking in the sentimentalist case. We are speaking about the blueberries. No? Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Am I right? Okay.
Sorry, because the context
Yeah.
is hard for me because
You are looking very critical. I try to explain it. Have mercy with me. I try to explain it. Yeah, okay. And it's not about the objectives in this green case. It's not about the objectives. We need these objectives to be pursued and to be realized. No? Otherwise, we will get real problem as a humanity. But in this, it's a good example, the wordings. The planet is endangered. The planet has to be saved. No, the planet will survive even without humanity. Even the nature will survive. I'm biologist. Now, so even the nature will survive without humanity. It will reorganize itself after some time. No? It's our problem as humanity, no, that we are destroying certain ecological chains, that we are destroying the nature as it is now. And this is respectless, no doubt, this lack of respect against the living being. And it is result of a certain mindset we developed over several centuries. Also this technological exact science approach to the world. And then it's not important if nature has a value in itself. You can neglect the value in itself. You can just treat it as a resource. No? And this mindset led to the existing objective facts, no? To the existing objective problems in the ecological field, no doubt. And we have to do something against it. There is climate change, no? And there is a problem, and we have to get active. No? The sentimentalist point comes from another angle, from another direction. The sentimentalist point says in a romantic way, we have to preserve it. What? Nature, the planet can live without us. And we have, as a first, we have to preserve everything of easy emotionality of that. Instead, on the base of rational argument. And second, we do it by all means. And we had a long discussion about the sentimentalist movement, and now it's your turn again, yeah, to explain why the sentimentalist movement. You see the critical faces; they're waiting for you. Yeah, good luck. And
this concept is a very, very hard concept to explain because I need some information, and we should exchange our information. I hope I will be live. And I will share my experience about some Islamic group that I had in Germany. I had this kind of experience, and I explained with Ulrich before. Me and my friend wrote a text and critiqued Islamic groups that you are against the woman right and children right, and you have many problems, and how you would like to follow the democracy, because the democracy is not related to the people who rejected the roots of democracy, and you didn't believe the woman rights, and you are not believe the woman as a human. Sorry for the woman who are sitting here. We wrote a text about this concept, and we shared this text in our city, and we put in a market that was related to my friend's market. And one young people came there and trade my friend's wife and said, "Why you use terrible text here and you are against Allah and anything else?" And we said, "Okay, we came from Iran and we know it was from Syria." And we said we came from Iran and we know about the Islam and we know about the dangers of this point of view. And the German people, they think it's an idea just, but they don't know this idea. It's a very fundamental idea and is against the human rights, against the children's rights. The Prophet Muhammad married, for example, married with a 6 years old, a girl 6 years old, and this is not correct, and blah 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 blah. We wrote there, and the police came. The young man trades us, and we called the police, and police came. What they did, he treated us, and we understood what happened for us, because this kind of people, we had many experiences about this kind of action, and this discourse are very, very clear for us. And the police came there and listened to two sides of this conflicts and said, okay, this is a different idea. It's not related to the danger. It's not dangerous for you. And we said, do you know what is the meaning the jihad? Do you know what is the meaning the kafir? Do you know what is meaning the blah, 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 these topics of the Islam? The police said, no, I don't know. But it's related to your idea, is not related to your safety. And it's a very, very simple sample for the sentimentalism. It's a very simple sample for the sentimentalism.
The police reaction.
And for education, we have many experiences in
like
this society, and
what exists?
I have many example for this kind of. This is related to the enemy of democracy inside the democracy. Okay, that sentimentalism help them and support them and respect them. It's a very dangerous. It's a very dangerous. It's against democracy and human rights. The outside of society, I explained another example about the environmental crisis and sentimentalism, that the people that follow the green thing in the nature and anything else, I follow it too. And it's an important thing for me too. Yeah, it's a very clear concept that all of us, we would like to be in a safe place, safe earth. We drink good and healthy water and breathe healthy air. It's normal. It's a rational people and rational human accept this concept. It's very, very clear. But how you can follow this concept? You would like to follow your ideology, or you would like to follow a real thing. If you would like to follow an ideology is related to the religion, I cannot speak. Okay, it's a religious concept and religious conflict. But if you would like to follow a real thing that are happening around you and around us, and you would like to solve this problem, please do a simple act. Search about a world map for the democratic countries and see and sign the countries that are living in a democratic situation, and compare this map with the pollution, air pollution map. Which kind of these countries produce a very, very, very high level air pollution? You can see very simple that non-democratic countries, if you are worried about the pollution, air pollution, why you didn't follow to be against this kind of country? If you are worried about it, but you don't, but you didn't do this because you would like follow the religion, because you are sentimental. You have a sentimental mind, and this is a problem that came from outside of the society. These two examples are an example to explain the meaning of sentimentalism. But to define the meaning of sentimentalism, we can search in many dictionaries. Sentimentalism is related to the concept that has no sign outside of our mind. It came from just from my mind, and I would like follow
my
it.
feeling, my emotion.
My feeling, my emotion, yeah, not related to the reality. And this is a very, very big problem, that sentimentalism and fundamentalism, two sides of one thing. What's this? One thing is threats, the democratic threat. Yeah, that's it.
I think that.
Okay. Please, Alan, please.
I think that you're setting up a false dichotomy. This notion of fundamentalism versus sentimentalism, frankly, I don't understand it at all, in the sense that there are other factors that are at play here. And if you take, for example, environmental issues, okay, what about the companies that are creating the pollution? Okay, what about the oligarchy that is creating pollution that is let's just go back to like the basic level where we were talking about communities. Okay, if you have a community where the water is being poisoned by a company and the people in the community react to the poisoning of their water, that's not sentimentalism.
Oh, no.
It's not sentimentalism. No. It's a real
it's
act.
Necessary.
It's a necessary. It's a very necessary act that they did, and they do.
Yes, so their action to respond to the fact that their water is unhealthy is a political act, okay? And their act, if you were in a democratic society, okay, so-called democratic society, then you are supposed to be able to use whatever means exist in a society to be able to change the conditions that are affecting your life, okay? I mean, there's many examples. The most famous example like in the US, for example, in Michigan, where the water in the community was being polluted and people tried to act to change that fact, but they were repressed. They were prevented from acting to be able to change their conditions. So is that sentimentalism?
No, exactly no.
I think it is.
What is it?
Maybe
it is, okay.
Yeah.
I will go in the floor. I'll try to explain it. In this case, in this community case of the pollution, it is not a sentimentalism, but an act of necessity to act against this pollution, no doubt. No? If we see it on the more broader scale, there is climate change, there is the need to act against it, and there is the need to reorganize large parts of our, is my opinion, of our existing economic system if we, as humanity, want to get out alive of this crisis now. No doubt about it. The sentimentalism Pechmann referred to is it's a mentality point. It's not about the what, no? It's about the how. It's a question of the mindset. If I approach everything in this world with an emotional approach, as in this Greek diction, only with pathos. Yeah? And if this is one point. Second point, for instance, we need to save the rainforest. right, we need to save the rainforests because it's lack of respect to destroy the rainforests, is my opinion. Lack of respect against life, no? And it is ecologically dangerous. Yes, it is. We have to do something against it, but it has not, saving the rainforest has not to become an ideology, a kind of what he called quasi-religious movement. And this is the different point. And these quasi-religious aspects, when it turns into an ideology, into a belief system, this is what he meant with sentimentalism. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You continue now.
No, it's correct.
It was your idea. No? Explain it.
But can I ask something, because you were mentioning the letzte Generation, right, which was sitting down. So that would also be considered as a sentimentalist movement.
In a way, yes. It is right to protest, but it is not in us to protest, and it's not in us to protest in such a way. It's not about a radicalism. It's about the futility of the entire endeavor. The political system gives a damn shit on the last generation and their protest. The existing industry does give a damn shit on this protest. The industry will continue. The economic chains will continue, just as if nothing has happened. And to think that we can, for instance, that we can approach in a very radical way in order to gain attention at all. For instance, by destroying pieces of art. Like these ladies who destroyed the Van Gogh painting in London. Why they are doing this? This is, hey, it leads to nothing. And it comes out of a certain romanticist, and this was his point, romanticist movement. We have to make a longer, I see your faces, okay. And I can explain it?
Yes.
Yeah, no? I like the fight, okay. We have to go, yeah. We have to go a bit back in history. What means romanticist movement? The romanticism in the 19th century, first of all, the German philosophical romanticism, was a reaction, I'm simplifying now, was a reaction against the beginning industrialization and the beginning formatted mass societies we arrived at today. The people felt it. That something goes in the total wrong track as regards human values, as regards community, as regards dialogue, as regards everything we spoke about in the morning. Now the reaction, what kind of reaction, and this is decisive if we speak about sentimentalism or not. The romanticist movement posed in the center of its worldview the ego, the self, the I. If you read philosophers like Fichte, he spoke about the absolute ego, that the free artist as an ego is the center of the world. Now it becomes really dangerous. And this mentality as an understanding of the human condition, that the ego is the center of the world, which is evident. It's a banal fact. Why to overemphasize it? As a reaction against loss of meaning, which started in this era of industrialization already. As the people had a feeling they are not anchored any longer. They have no reference points in their lives. It becomes meaningless. It becomes industrialized. It becomes and so on. And this feeling of a loss of anchorage is overcompensated by the pronunciation, the over-pronunciation of the value of the individual self, of the I, of the ego. You can make a whole philosophy out of it. There's a splendid work from Isaiah Berlin, this English investigator of history of ideas. He speaks about romanticism. Fantastic. All what came later. This radical fascist movement, he says, in the 20th century, the existing consumer society has its roots in this romanticist movement. And we have to see it in this direction. It's not against the object. As said, we need to save rainforests, yes. We need to regain respect for life and do not treat nature and life just as a resource. This is lack of respect. This is godless in a Christian understanding. And this deeply godless. All right. But how we do it? Now the how is coming, and out of which mindset I am doing things. And this is this romanticist move. And his argument, he said, as the sentimentalism goes hand in hand with fundamentalism. It's not a versus, it's an and. As a sentimentalism plus fundamentalism. In the movie he cited, is Agora. I have seen the movie. This is fantastic. Also, this is the context, a narrative context. The last days of an antique civilization in Alexandria, the famous city of Alexandria, with a large library, where also a woman can get access to the academy. She had luck, okay, but she gained access to the academy. It's about a free conversation, about a dialogue. And then you have the sentimentalist movement, these first Christian movements rising up, evolving to believe in God, to have nothing to do with politics, to lead a life. Now it becomes ideology. To lead a life.
Philosophy, library, books.
You don't need philosophy. You don't need it. You just have to be pure. This is Martin Luther in an early stage and radicalized. So, and then it switches to fundamentalism. And then all the antique books, all the antique science, every non-Christian standpoint has to be abandoned. It's not important. And then you arrived from, in this example, and then you arrived from sentimentalism into fundamentalism. And now it's your turn again.
And Alan,
yeah,
thank you for your question, Alan, because I agree 100% with you, because we have no chance if we didn't attend to the nature. We didn't use the clear water and clean water, and if we have no good air, what can we do for the future, for our next generation? I agree with you, but it was an example about some parts of this kind of point of view, that they are not follow the roots of the problem. That some parts of this kind of point of view, they would like to follow just their ideology, and they wouldn't like follow the politics. Exactly, they wouldn't like to follow the politics. Just they would like to do the thing that they want at that moment. For example, a child would like to clean his or her room without attending to the garbage that grow outside of his or her room. And it's a very big problem, and it was an example to explain the meaning of sentimentalism.
This is really cool.
And thank you for Ulrich that he explained more and clear to define the meaning, the sentimentalism, because we used these two concepts to show that they are enemies of dialogue. They are enemies of the democracy. We are not focused on the green parties or green groups.
That's not about
It was an example to show some points. That's it. And if I had a mistake to explanation, I'm sorry, and I will explain again. because this concept is new, and we are living inside of this concept, and it was new for these times, but it happened many times. I think in ancient Greek happened. I think in the time that 400 AC for Hypatia in the Agora film that I mentioned, it happened in that period. It was not related to the just Islamic group. Is related to the fundamentalism group. As a Christian group appear in that moment. And is related, for example, when I used an Islamic example, my example is not related exactly to the all of Muslims.
Right.
It's related to the radical Islam and fundamental Islam, and not all of the people who would like to save nature. I didn't do this. I used an example just to mention about the situation. And that's it. If it's not clear, I will explain more. And
It's okay.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Fundamentalist position brought to its core is we have one worldview. We have the right facts for assisting this worldview, and this worldview has to be spread out. And this in itself is a religious movement in the bad sense of religion. There is only one truth. There are no other truths, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 n most important things in form of activity priorities resulting out of this one truth. As in monotheism. The monotheistic, from their structure, monotheist religions are very much related, and they hate themselves as the past. Please.
Yeah, but then I think you would also put the IPCC, for example, underneath this, right? Because it has one worldview, climate change exists, and we only have those measures to mitigate climate change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel for me, the jump to fundamentalism is way too quickly. Oh God. No, I didn't want it to go away. For me, this is way too quickly. I think there are different forms of communication. Some are more radical than others. For example, for me, that someone pours potato soup over a painting, for me, this is a form that is acceptable as a form of protest. I do agree that maybe if there's harm to us,
that has been destroyed. Also when democracy ends, and wait, do you like potato soup being pushed over your paintings? I think not.
Probably not, but if there is, but of course I do not like this, but I think there's a difference. If someone's being harmed, physically or mentally harmed, then I do understand that they're like borders to something. But in this case, there was a point that was being made that a painting that is a painting that gained value through a capitalist system, in this case, the only reason, well, because if someone would pour potato soup over mine painting, no one would even talk about this because it hasn't gained any value through, like, I don't know, like auctions and so on. It's a totally virtual value that
it's about the boundaries, about the borders. It's about respect.
Exactly, but the boundaries, as you can see, our boundaries, for example, are different in those regards. So that I feel like if the jump for me to fundamentalism is too quickly happening.
There is a thin line to fundamentalism as regards, let's say, certain worldviews and fundamentalism. There's a thin line, and this is at the nature of the. It's at the nature of the thing, and not a personal judgment to make quick jumps. The quick jump is possible because there's a thin line. One point. The other point, in this painting example, Van Gogh, who made this painting, was no friend of the existing system. And now the sentimentalist point comes with a fundamentalist touch, namely destroying a painting of value without having any respect. Van Gogh, in this example, is not General Motors. Van Gogh, on the contrary, was an enemy of this existing system. So, and it's stupid and infantile to destroy the work of art, the work of cultural value, just for pronouncing my personal world essentialism in the baddest way. And this I do not accept.
But aren't you being sentimentalist towards cultural achievement and things that have been wrong? Because I went to art and like being a living artist, I think we spend a lot of attention towards art that is not important for today. It was important like 40, 50 years ago to a certain point, or in Van Gogh's case, I think it opened a lot for the art world, and I'm very thankful for the impressionist artists. But there's a number of artists that lives today, and we are trying to solve problems with art and trying to solve questions that are important for today. And I also don't have a problem with protest in that kind of way, because like for me, it doesn't feel like you've been talking about respect a lot.
Exactly.
And for me, respect, like I'm trying to sort out. I don't want to like be on the side of anybody here, but I think it's interesting because where does respect start and end? And like you said, Anna, like you have the feeling that your boundaries of respect are different. So in this case, how can we figure out where is this line of respect actually? Because right now I feel like I couldn't make that line right now.
Okay, now the discussion becomes really interesting. We just have to turn it towards democracy and policy, please.
Yes, I also have to raise a question regarding that, because I think what we other discussed, younger people and younger artists, everyone in the younger generation has the feeling that nobody's listening to them and that they have no future. And they have the feeling that people who are in politics and people who are in power and people who have money, they're protecting these cultural values, but not the planet. And they maybe feel, why should we preserve these Van Gogh paintings if our planet is dying anyway, and we lose our ground of living?
Yeah, but
I'm not saying any
you're not against.
here, but
clear.
it's that is the point of what they want to make, and what I think Anna.
I try to. Okay, so far so good. I try to, and I'm for clarification. So I'm an absolute sentimentalist as regards the Greek polis. As absolute. This is, I'm nearly fundamentalist in this. No, seriously. If we try to bring this entire discussion, is really interesting, towards democracy. This would mean question. Let's take this destruction of cultural values. As I will call it cultural values. Let's take this as a case example. Does democracy mean that certain minorities, or even that certain groups, have the right to destroy achievements, no matter how we judge them? To destroy achievements of an existing democratic society. Is this still democracy, the destruction by a certain group? Is this a democracy or not? We can turn it as a very discussion with the AfD and the Verfassungsschutz, where you spontaneously said, well, why to protect the AfD if they are observed and proven as a fascist party? Why in the hell is this democracy to let them alive as a political party? Here you are very clear. It's not feasible. We have to remove the AfD from the political scene. you would have no glimpse of a doubt about it. When we take the same problem situation, that a work of cultural value, Van Gogh, is destroyed, for you, this is okay. We can discuss about it. It's a question if it's okay. Is this a democracy? Please.
Yeah, sure.
It's a little bit. I think it is a little bit different if you destroy some object as a symbol of capitalism, and
but it's not
such a
it
building
is not a
is
symbol.
for these people probably a symbol of capitalism, because it is very expensive to buy, and or if you destroy something like a democracy or a living system, which is an underlying part of the life for many people. If you have such a painting, sure, it is a great work, and it should be respect on it, and you if you destroy it, it's sad for the cultural aspects of this painting, but no one relies on this painting to have her or his daily food. But on the democracy, it's different, I think. So there's another quality on it.
In which kind it is different in case of democracy? Just to conclude his argument. It was a question. In which direction it's a different issue with democracy? This was your point, Joshua. This was your point, no? And why it is different? So can you explain it? Why it is different?
Because the building is the painting is an expression of a cultural point, and its values are in a way present that are good to have for the people, and nice to see, and in some points we need to respect this, but if the painting is not there anymore, there will no one be to die or to suffer under this, different than from not being able to see it. It's just a pleasure to see it, and probably for the company who owns it, it is a financial problem.
And so what?
Yeah, but this company has had the opportunity to buy this building after its survivement was established. So this company already has achieved the state where this company is wealthy and can have paintings, can buy paintings, and paintings are not necessarily needed to survive, but they are important, but they are not like democracy. The democracy is needed to be able to vote, to have enough to eat and to drink.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Can I add something? Because I think there are two things mixed up. Because a friend of mine was the restaurator from those paintings who were damaged. Also, the Monet was in Potsdam, and we talked a lot about this topic. And I asked her, as the first person coming to this situation where the police was, the young people were brought away, and she was standing in this museum with the job to restore this art piece. And she was totally upset because she said it's exactly, after her opinion, the mistake to criticize the market, what they can do. I also think it's a way to start maybe a revolution in climate aspects. But at the same time, she said, when I asked her why she's so sad that those young people are destroying art, that art is the key for our democracy. Just want to bring in this aspect, because if we are starting to kill our own cultural heritage, we are not capable to have an identity. And identity is a question of culture and of democracy. And if we're killing ourselves in a way how we kill our culture, we can't move forward in our actions, also in our arts. So if we lose the arts, it's not possible to have a future. It's, in my opinion, naive to say we can survive without cultural impulses or without art.
This is a very good point.
Very
good point.
I had something to say.
I think that nobody was denying that fact. And nobody in this discussion denied that fact. We just talked about different borders or different opinions, I guess.
Absolutely, but I just react on the comment that we can survive without art. I don't think so. Absolutely not. Not our democracy is able to survive without art.
To the question of why we look different on AfD and Verfassungsschutz and the paintings and the protests. He was just referring to that question and not to his personal opinion, I guess. Right?
You're sure this is right?
Yeah, I just argued about, because you compared this to I thought so. You compared this to the AfD destroying the democracy, and I think you can. It's a little bit problematic to compare those both.
I just wanted to make another point. My general point was where are the limits of tolerance as regards democracy? And can a democracy even tolerate forces destroying it? And this applies, for instance, to certain political parties, like this AfD discussion, but as well, as Norina had it very, very good in my eyes, to the point of culture, because culture, so let's summarize it, culture is a part of identity. And when we speak about the human nature, also the conditio humana, it's not just biology and safety in personal and biological and social terms. It's also about identity, and identity is a cultural issue, and that's it. And then we are speaking about this kind of cultural heritage. They have the same value as resources as are other natural resources, because it belongs to the human nature to have culture. And this was my parallel I tried to make.
Yeah, but there's a conceptualization to that also, because if you, in regards to the AfD, you're dealing with a political situation which is basically a situation where they overtly have stated they don't want democracy. So basically what they're saying, we want to be in the democratic system, and at the same time, we don't want democracy. A painting is not making a statement about democracy. A painting is making a comment about community and society and what existed before and what affects that democracy. So one's a political situation, and I think we also have to look at the reason, like these people destroyed the paintings. I mean, was it really a question of democracy, or was it really a question of we want to make the big enough splash that will be on the news all over the world so that we can get what we want? And that's another situation that has to be discussed on that kind of a situation, because art shouldn't be destroyed just because of a political movement. But one thing you have to face is if a populist party as was shown by Hitler in World War
I had to
II,
destroy it.
got into power, they would have taken all these paintings out of the museum and
clear.
stored them in buildings for themselves, so they could have them and nobody else could have them.
Oh.
So does that really make sense also?
But I would like to actually say something regarding that point, because I find art as being highly romanticized in many different ways. And also, there are many different collectors worldwide, and many collections are actually not public. Like I've been able to visit one in Switzerland, and it was only because our professor has a very established name, and so he was able to go there. But like Switzerland, the country itself, there's like a regulation that if you have an important collection, you must show it to at least one person or something. And so they show it to as least people as possible. And some of these collections actually contain highly important pieces of art that I think should be seen everywhere in the world. So the imagination that art that is being shown, like many art pieces are not being shown exactly the same reason that Nazis
these are
Now,
different.
you're talking about a situation where that could be changed quite easily when people sell art.
It's just something I wanted to add.
State
So
that you can buy this collection of art, but this collection of art has to be shown in museums so many times, so many weeks of the year. And I mean, there's a lot of art that's shown all over the world all the time. I mean, let's face it. I mean, in the United States, you know, the Guggenheim, you have all these, and in Paris, you have the Louvre, and there's art shown to the public. But I don't think that has anything to do with democracy. It's got to do with the people trying to make money out of something and trying to isolate it for themselves, so that it basically it has a value instead of looking to the good of the society and sharing it with everybody
and
else.
that does happen a lot.
You sure?
One interesting point you told us was that they probably have damaged it because they want to have attention and to be on the newspapers. And I think that is a good point, because whether it was okay or not to destroy this painting, they had not got this attention if they had not destroyed it. And I think it's how can we protest in a way without damaging, but also but at the same time get enough attention to make to have a sensible protest. I think this may be a good question for participation, because democracy depends on protests. I think in many cases.
Who was next?
Alan.
Ellen? The chest.
Yes, I think that, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I would just like to step back for a minute and go back to the demos, okay? Because within the demos, culture is integral to the demos, okay? Culture is not a commodity. Culture is part of the community of knowledge that is created to facilitate democracy, okay? So when people attack a painting, or when people attack this particular painting, I think what they're attacking, or what they're trying to express, is the hypocrisy where the culture of democracy is one thing and the culture of art as a commodity is something else, okay? But in a democracy, these elements, culture, politics, form a whole. They're not separate elements. They're integral to one another, okay? A democracy cannot function without culture, okay? And the culture expresses the values of a democracy. And in a Greek society, you can see examples of how this functioned and how this worked. Okay?
Yes.
Finito.
Very good, Ellen. Very good. Good speech. Good point.
Me,
Okay.
I also think art is art, museum is museum. Why the climate Kleber didn't go directly to the concerns and made theirs the protest, or perhaps also with colors, but not in museums. It has nothing to do with the climate.
Okay. Okay. We have, please continue. No?
I mean, maybe I have one last comment, but I would like to tie it back to our original discussion also a little bit. First of all, I don't think it's about the abolishment of art per se. So it's not about abolishing culture. How could you abolish culture? You cannot abolish culture. If they would have poured a soup over a painting that I did, no one would even think about it. So that would not be a form of protest. So it needs to be this kind of painting that has gained value over years through like all the systems of capitalism that it sits in. So first of all, that doesn't mean that it's a correct way of doing it, but it's an expression of protest that is more radical. And that's maybe because you cannot see these people don't think that our democracy still exists. Their image of a democracy is a different one because they see that all the climate change policies have not been established. And the fact is, I've just been watching a talk about it from a scientist. Nearly none in 2023 and 2024, any of these policies have been really established. We have passed the point of no return. And this is the expression. And there you also have to see, like, you have to weigh. And this is, I think, what the person said. I do not know his name, who's sitting in the red shirt. This is like also about, like, you cannot compare this. Do you want to die or do you want to keep a painting? Like, if no one is hearing you in your voice, like, what else do you have as a means of expression? I do not mean that this is the correct way. There are other ways, maybe more creative ways, but it's one way of expressing. And I think it also shows that what is important to the system is a painting that has certain value, whereas other paintings do not have the same value. And that's why if someone pours a soup over my painting, no one is ever screaming except of me. But I could also say this is the abolishment of art. So you understand, like, it is only, everyone is just screaming because it has value, this one painting. And so I feel like for me, I do not say it's correct, but I think it's a viable form of protest that shows that for certain people, their image of democracy, the democracy doesn't function anymore. Yeah.
But this is a good general point for our discussion, because now we are leading a dialogue. No? We come from different directions. We cannot reconcile and should not reconcile everything as regards to the differences. Okay. Nevertheless, we try to work out something in common. Here we have it, a dialogue. No? And one point as a question can be, for a democracy, and in particular for the pseudo-democracies of today, which are bureaucracies. These are management systems and no true democracies and capital-driven management systems. Thesis. If we look at this kind of pseudo-democracies, is it sometimes necessary for democracy to be established, to be re-established, to be defended, that we take some forms of violent actions? No? This is the very, very, very old question of the holy war, not meant negative, the jihad. Yeah? Sometimes we need to take aggressive action in order to protect something. For instance, our future as a human race. If none of these climate policies have been realized, where we shall end. The issue you raised, but the general issue is, okay, democracy is a question. A democracy does not mean that we always rely just on speaking. It's provocative. Sometimes we have to do a revolution, and the revolution is the holy war for each generation in a different version. The French Revolution was a jihad, a holy war, and so on. As in this literal sense, I'm speaking of the jihad. I'm no Islamic guy. So I have to defend. Look, so I'm a sentimentalist as regards the Greek. This is hopefully my only weak point. I just try to go down to the ontology of the issues. If you take a revolution as a holy war in wider sense, and this is a jihad thing. No matter how we argue it, it will end in a war. Is it needed for democracy sometimes to take violent action in order to keep it, the democracy, in order to re-establish it? What the people in Burma do, for instance, with this military junta, you cannot discuss with this military guys, forget about it. This I meant with jihad in wider sense.
I mean, I think if you look at what's going on in America today, where you have a two-party system where you have a center left and a center right, and the right has gone a little bit farther with the political essence of like Mr. Trump right now. And the question is when you have a man in a democracy that's using the democracy for financial gain, even when he's a president and when he's in party, and he's doing things that are against the law that any other human being in America would have been thrown in jail for, and he's still allowed to run, and he's still allowed to use the system in negative ways, and he could win an election, which could see the downfall of democracy in the United States if enough people supported him. I mean, is that where we really want to go? In that case, would it be the right solution in America for the left and the far left to go out into the streets and start fighting the MAGNA supporters and create a pseudo civil war so that they could, quote unquote, protect democracy? I think that's a very good question.
The question is also, is it still a democracy?
If it's still a democracy at that time,
is it a two-party system where each participant hasn't had the feeling being heard?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very dangerous to say, should we go out and have a jihad to protect our democracy? Jihad, quote unquote.
Not quote unquote, of course. Revolution.
I think, like, protecting democracy is an important thing, but once you get to the step where you basically say that the people that are running the country under a thing no longer want that democracy, or there's been statements that have been stated that basically states that they don't want to really have a democracy, they would really like to more have a dictatorship. I mean, is the reality that you have to have an internal war to go over that, or is there other ways to overthrow that somehow without having to get to violence? That's a very good question.
Violence in the direct form is the last chain in the logic of resistance.
I think if we can really look at it, if we look at Israel today, with the situation going on in Israel today, if we go back to Golda Meir, who was probably one of the better prime ministers of Israel, she once warned the people of Israel that the big danger for the Israelis is that they will become the enemy. That's the danger, and that's what's happening in Israel today. You have a government that's become the enemy. Even though they're under their own problems, but the question is do you basically take on in a culture a certain mental stance that makes you worse?
That's a good point, and this relates to the revolution point. Is it a sentimentalist, a romantic conception of democracy, that democracy is always peaceful? Just a question. No?
She wanted to.
Yeah, please, please.
I'm just questioning if it's also related to the question we had 2 hours ago about identification and about being a citizen, because I just thought about in this case of the generation who want to fight for the climate perspectives in our world. What is the outcome of a revolution or a violent act? Is there an outcome? In the best case, it would be a dialogue. But if I can't identify myself with those persons who are, for example, attacking art, I'm out, because I don't find a way how to identify myself with those younger people who I want to help, who I'm totally with them, but I can't find the way. Why is it, in this case, the art piece who must be killed? I can understand that it must be something to be loud, that there must be a violent part maybe, but how can we get there that the outcome of the violent part, if we need one, is the dialogue? We only can get there via this identification, or that I feel, okay, I'm on your side, or I'm with you, I'm a part of your vision or idea.
It's a good point, because this refers to another aspect we had in the morning. It refers to ethos and a baseline of common values. No? I can have only a dialogue, even with my enemy, who was my enemy during the revolution times. I can speak again with him if we have a common baseline of values. If there is no baseline of values, we remain enemies, and that's it. And related is this, and therefore deliberately I said jihad, to make revolution at its logical end, French Revolution style, as a real upheaval, real violence, is in the existing worldwide systemic conditions we also address, this neoliberal system. Is their revolution the only possible way to re-achieve real democracies? In the existing system, we cannot continue to exist. It is ecologically disastrous, it is socially disastrous, and it will be economically disastrous in the long run. It's a non-viable system we are living in. What to do in order to save a democracy and to return to a real citizenship? Is revolution the only way? Just speaking is useless, and making policies is useless, because there are some people deciding if the policies are put into action, are realized or not. It's a question.
Speaking of, I think the dialogue is the only way, and not the violence, because we can see now that our language is getting more violent and violent through the internet fights and social media. And also how we value or how the media is valuing different actions, and people who are populist get more attention. And for example, we only talk about the protests of the last generation, but there were also huge protests from the farmers in Germany, and there were actually many people killed in the streets because cars run into the dirt they put there, and nobody talked about it, and nobody. It's not even interesting for the public discussion, and that's why we have to shift our view, I think, on the dialogue, and really get back to the points.
Yes.
Yeah.
To which points?
Which are our shared values. Okay. And not only who is the loudest, or which political opinion or buzzwords are clicked most or heard most or get most attention, like we had earlier, also the attention point.
But if political persons are part of the democratic system. And for some urgent wishes, the citizen cannot reach them because they close their doors.
Clear. It's power behavior.
It must be possible to open the door and to say, we want to speak 3 to 5 sentences and after we go out, but we wish answer in 2 weeks, perhaps. This should be possible and not excluding work from some communal politicians. And also, I think political people or the administration should be better explain why they do this and this for the city. At Karlsruhe, we have a rubbish problem with the contract since weeks. And I think it would have been really better to explain why the city made this contract with this problems after signed the contract. And in relation to other problems states have, this could be a better possibility to handle some things.
This is an essential
Thinking
point.
of somebody
Yeah,
up
please,
there.
please, continue. It's an essential element of democracy in the Greek style to explain. You have to explain. So when you're in charge as a manager, you have to explain why you did it. No, please. Anna?
I think Alan wants to say something.
Alan first, okay. It's very hard in the sun here to see your. No? Just speak. Alan, please. No?
Alan, you're muted.
Okay, I think that to go back again to the demos, okay, that there are certain assumptions in terms of like dialogue. For the citizens of the demos to be able to have a dialogue, the assumption is that there's a common body of knowledge or information that people have to be able to participate in terms of a dialogue. But when you have a political situation where the body of knowledge is uneven or unequal, okay, then it becomes very difficult to have a dialogue because some people have access to more information than other people, okay? So then what has happened, what could theoretically start as a dialogue becomes a discourse where certain people who have more information are imposing their information, which may be incorrect, on the population, okay? And we have this kind of situation now, okay? We exist in this kind of environment where people who have access to more information than other people are able to impose their ideology onto the population, okay? In that kind of situation, what do you do to be able to like function as a democracy?
Anna?
I just wanted to say something about violation. I'm totally against violation. I just realized at some point when I had a discussion with a friend who was pro violation in a demonstration. So May 1st demonstration in Berlin tends out to be rather violent at some point, and I'm totally against it because I think it's dysfunctional. But I feel like Arab Spring movement and stuff, or people who self-ignited themselves, like there are like forms of violation when it's supported by it depends on, first of all, where you start from and which system you are, how you consider your system to be democratic or not, whether everyone carries that form of let's say, violence, whatever type of shape it takes. And then I think it also really depends on the type of violence in the end that's being used. So I think it cannot really be, I think I'm totally against violence in general, but for example, for me, violence is violence that causes bodily harm, physical harm, and also mental harm. But a painting for me is also a form of violence, and I also don't mean it's right, but I think it is a different form of expression that has different sides. Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to close this discussion for me here. I feel like
we have this revolution point still existing. I do not want deliberately, I do not want to focus on the violent aspect, but it is violent, the revolution. We have to consider it, also to accept it. The other point Ellen made, I think this is the point of knowledge we addressed in the morning, but now it's more precise. For a real democracy means for more or less equal people. The equality of information is also essential. Otherwise, as Ellen said, the dialogue turns into a discourse. And then we have this situation, I do not know the English, this Hinterzimmerpolitik.
Yes.
Wenn der Karlsruher Spezialausschuss über die Thunbergbahn beschließt, also oh, come on. Yeah. The point is how to achieve this needed base for equal information, for having a real community in terms of knowledge, for having one premise amongst others for a democracy. This is the policy issue again in other words. And how such a base of knowledge could look like today. We are over-flooded with information. Which kind of information is essential for keeping up a true community? Let's call them polis, okay, in a democracy. So what kind of info we need? And the existing political systems are not able and not willing to give this information. Also the persons in charge inside the systems. But systems are made by human beings. So I worked for years in government consultancy. It's not an anonymous system. It are certain persons nourishing the system, also building up the system, nourishing the system, and defending the system. Very simple. You can name these guys. And this, again, addresses just to draw connections and contexts. This addresses again the revolution aspect. What if these guys want to stay in power, which is a realistic case? They do not want to get democratic. They do want to continue with the existing inequalities. And inequality of the knowledge base is an essential element of inequality.
Yes.
What to do then in order to regain a democracy?
Well, there's two options, One option is a revolution. This is obvious. From history, we know that when all of the democratic processes are exhausted, the only alternative becomes revolution, okay? And there are different kinds of revolution. There are peaceful revolutions and there are violent revolutions. But when the systems of democracy, or when the institutions of democracy falter and don't function, you have revolution. I mean, history is just filled with these examples, endless.
And therefore, I agree. Therefore, I address this revolution point as a over-exaggerated the jihad point. We need revolution to defend democracy. And please, Joshua.
Or to reinstall.
Yeah, to reinstall it. Yeah, to reinstall it.
Do we really need revolution? Because the only point I remember where we need it is if we don't have attention for our needs, for our political aspects. So probably we need a system, or probably we have to delegate and to establish the information as a driver for our political participation. So something, I don't know, can we have an instance which is not driven by capitalistic needs, but nevertheless trustful enough to work as a as information keeper, or I don't know how to say that in English, but
in Deutsch.
Wir brauchen eine Instanz, die Informationen von den politischen Akteuren nimmt und der Öffentlichkeit so verfügbar macht, dass die Öffentlichkeit ihr vertrauen kann, und also diese Instanz müsste die Informationen so vorsortieren, dass irgendwie unterschieden wird, was ist Populismus oder was ist interessant, welche Probleme gibt es und welche Bedürfnisse, und das irgendwie ohne gefärbt zu sein von irgendeinem politischen Willen, sondern einfach nur als Information irgendwie weitergibt.
Okay.
Dieser Zeitungsaspekt wieder mehr.
Die Institution der Zeitung.
Griechisches Theater.
Ja, der griechisches. I try to translate you the question.
I mean, I would just say that it's about, like, the question is, do we need revolution? Wouldn't trust be enough? That people trust the institutions of policy making.
And he said one step further, this is one aspect, and one step further he said, we would need an institution, a trustful institution. We the citizens can trust in this institution, that this institution provides us with real relevant information regarding our res publica, also our state, in the best case our polis, and pre-selects information that the citizens really need to know in order to have this equality of knowledge again, at least in relevant issues regarding our community. Joshua's point.
I think in the American model, for instance, the Constitution of the United States is the protection for the people.
That was the idea.
If you lose the Constitution, you lose the democracy and you lose the people.
Exactly.
So I think the key in the American model is that the Constitution that was written 200 so many years ago by some very intelligent men basically put in enough protections to make a society that would function, and it survived for 200 years. But as you see with the democracy of today, there's always forces within the political spheres of a country and the economic spheres that are trying to change the Constitution and change the law, whether it's on a federal level or on a state level or on a city level, to bring their essence and their power into a better state within the system. So I think if you're to believe in anything, you have to believe that there's a constitution that was for, by, and of the people, and that is basically what democracy today is really about.
Good point. What do you think about this point?
My argument was just about the newspapers and the information bringers are now under economic and they were not in the history, not more than today.
I mean, the problem with the newspapers and the news today is if you looked at, in the morning, if you get up and you read BBC, you read CNN, you read Yahoo, and you read the German Zeitungen, on the same story, the story doesn't match in any of those four. They're all four separate stories with point of views that don't really match. And so you get four stories about the same story. So how do you decide what is the right story unless you're there?
Information-based paper
So
or
the
not.
information, the source of the information
It's confusing.
is really the problem in democracy right now, because the sources that we have are not neutral. They're not done for the people. They're basically done for political and economic gain.
Yeah. All right. Good.
But this is not a new problem, right? So we have maybe more different access to information, but since we have newspaper and propaganda, it's always difficult, no?
Problem, I think, but what we have is we have access in 15 minutes, where maybe 50 years ago it was 3 hours, and maybe 100 years ago it was 3 days. So the speed of knowledge that's being thrown out to us on any given story is given to us 2.5. In fact, it goes on the minute it happens. The boat that hit the bridge in Baltimore. It was across all the news things in 30 seconds after it happened. So the speed at which knowledge is given to people is so quick now that the absorption level is very, very difficult, I think. But I agree with you. I think we've always had a problem with that.
Okay.
But now it circulates also differently. It circulates way quicker, and it's way harder to discern what's real or not with deepfakes and AI technologies. I mean, now there's, for example, a law that claims you have to, in a newspaper, you have to mention if you're using AI to actually gather information or write the article itself. And I see that quite often now somewhere.
Yeah, because you become to the producer and you're not still just the consumer. It's quite opposite to what we discussed before.
But the problem becomes one because information becomes commodified.
Yes.
So this is where AI comes into it, because AI is part of the commodification process, okay? And basically, it's the function of AI in relationship to news is to eliminate the journalist whose job was to gather knowledge and information about a specific subject. Okay, so this is a really, it's a serious problem right now, and it's being
AI could basically be the destruction of democracy.
Yeah.
That's a strong point. No? Proposal, we can make a quarter of an hour break if you're interested to continue. No?